I think we really appreciate both of you to join our chamber today, and we're really looking for some insights, and we're looking for. Before I forget, I'd like to make sure that maybe our minister, Stephen Lecce, maybe you can give us a little bit more about our new complex that you were so great in helping fund or raising some money. I think that's just tremendous, the levels of government working together to bring that project to fruition.
Absolutely. First off, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Angelo. Thank you to the King Chamber for the opportunity. And of course, gratitude and shout out to Prab for returning to the King Chamber. I think he's been with us at least 3 times through the pandemic, maybe more. And so we appreciate having direct access to the minister responsible for small business recovery. I also just want to recognize former Councilor Linda Papps and a variety of other leaders on the call today, as well as members of council who've joined us today. First off, we've been working on the King City Community Center for over a year, working in partnership with the mayor and council to deliver on this critical project. And I think, when the current facility, the infrastructure is, almost twice the age of your member provincial parliament, I think we can confirm that we need to renew our infrastructure, make sure it is maintaining the growth, the needs, the demands of many young families and seniors and individuals who use that space. So it is exciting that we were able to partner and deliver a pretty significant investment. It is the largest infrastructure investment that the province will have made for any municipality under that particular project stream. And for me, it's just very exciting because a multi-million-dollar investment with two ice rinks, indoor-outdoor pool, a soccer, baseball diamond, a full suite recreation fitness space, multi-use rooms for the community. It's going to be a game changer in our quality of life. So we're excited to deliver that and appreciate the mayor's continued collaboration. Today, we're really, as on the precipice of moving into stage 1, we're starting to see some light at the end of darkness, at the end of the tunnel, if you will. We are entering stage 1 with a great sense of confidence because the public health indicators are moving really right in the right direction. Case rates are declining sharply and vaccine rates are increasing. We're now over 70% of the population with 1 dose. And we have a strategy to make sure every citizen that wants a vaccine will be double dosed by the end of the summer. And that's really critical to our recovery. So I'll set the stage with just we're building the foundations for that recovery. And perhaps, Angela, I could turn it over to Prab to outline some of the measures and supports and the vision we have to supporting job creation in our community and ultimately really supporting local businesses who have a great deal of adversity over the pandemic. And we want them to know that we're going to continue to be there with them, really to support competitiveness and ultimately to promote buying local within the province over the coming months.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen, and appreciate the opportunity to once again be here with Angelo, the King Chamber. It's great to keep connected, and something that we always want to do is ensure that we continue to listen to those who are on the front lines of this pandemic as small business owners who have been we know and recognize have been significantly impacted by the measures that have been put forward. And so it's crucial for us to continue to have these conversations, continue to engage with businesses, no matter how difficult the conversations are. It's important for us to hear, as your elected representatives, what the government needs to do to better support those that have been impacted. Now we've got, we're at a point in time, as Stephen was mentioning, that there's a lot of hope for businesses. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot that's been built up into Friday, which is the stage 1 reopening, and that is making sure that we continue to move our economy forward. We continue to get it open, and I'm sure many of the people on the call know what the general measures that are going to be enacted tonight as of midnight. But you'll get to go out and enjoy a dinner on a patio if you'd like to. Places of worship will be opening to 15%. Retail capacity will be opening to 15%. Non-essential retail will now be allowed in stores where we previously saw roped off aisles, all of which was very necessary to get the third wave under control that took over this, not just Ontario, all of Canada, but all across the world. We saw how significant of a threat this was to the health and safety of the people across the world. So now we're at a point where we've got 2 to 3 days of cases under 500 ICUs, significantly decreasing across the province, and truly the hard work of so many people that really got us to this point, and many sacrifices. Along the way, the government also put forward many supports to make sure that businesses could weather this storm. We've seen, the implementation of the small business support grant that initially gave businesses up to $20,000 grants, and after that, we automatically doubled that payment. And we're happy to announce that 91,000 businesses have automatically received their second payments. That puts support through that program alone at about $2.9 billion for small businesses across the province. It's the largest program outside of Ontario. There's no other government that's been able to put this much firepower behind supporting their small businesses. But as a government, we did step up to ensure that those businesses that were restricted and shut down got that money. Now we've also got, as many of you might know, many other supports to help with that, whether it be your coverage of property taxes, energy usage to 100%. And we also put forward structural changes in our fall economic statement in November of last year, where you should be seeing now the 14 to 16% decrease in energy costs in your industrial and commercial usage for both of those businesses. You will also see the business education and tax relief that we committed to reducing. Those should also be very shortly reflected in your property tax as coming down and reducing that cost. So there's a lot of measures that have been put in place right now to help support businesses get through it, but there's also been a focus also looking at long-term, the longevity of this economic recovery to ensure that businesses can weather the storm and continue to be competitive afterwards. We've seen many reports that have come out that suggest that, in the coming month, 2 to 3 months, households will really drive the economic recovery of this province. And that being, many people haven't been able to travel, they haven't been able to get out. So there is a significant pent-up demand for businesses. And we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that that money that is being spent by, domestic households, we're going to promote that we need to spend that money domestically, in our communities, whether it's King or other communities across the province. We want to drive shop local significantly to ensure that, the money that is being spent on, Canadian-made goods, Ontario-made goods, and supporting Ontario jobs. And so we're really looking forward to ensuring that, we can bring up campaigns to do that and support our small businesses that have been so significantly impacted during this pandemic. And, also look forward to hearing, some concerns or what the government can do as we move forward to recovery now, as we're looking forward to, stage 1 on Friday, and how we can continue to work together to solve many of the issues that continue to impact the small businesses, whether it be from a pandemic focus or whether it also be just from a competitive focus. So with that, appreciate the opportunity from Stephen to be here today with all of you, and also Angela, once again, thank you for all that you have done as the president of the chamber, and for stepping up to the plate during this pandemic, and really making sure that we can always communicate, always have the opportunity to have these discussions, and great feedback that comes from your chamber to the government to inform important policy decisions. So with that, I will pass it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the update, and thank you, Mr. Lecce, as well. I did what I would like to do, and I guess I should have said from the start, what we'll do, if it's okay, we have a good crowd out today, and everybody's anxious to maybe ask a question here and there. With your indulgence, I will probably go to that format, if that's okay. It'll give us a little bit more time, and then if that's okay with the ministers, we can take some questions, and I'm sure we can build off of that, and give an opportunity for our small businesses, and if they have any specific questions or something that they would like to share. I would just ask that we all take. Let's not take too much. Give everybody a chance to ask a question, and we're as short or brief as possible with our ministers. We are going to stay on time, and we thank them for their time in advance that they spent with us for this hour. So if that's okay, I would like everybody to. I'm not sure if you all may or may not know. You could either have a hand. I can't see all the screen. I can't see everybody. So if you have a question, either put your hand or put your hand up in your screen. But I see Teresa, who put up her hand, and just go ahead, Teresa, and ask the ministers questions.
Good morning, ministers. Thanks for being with us today. It's always great to see your faces. I am wondering how soon we think, I know I'm being presumptuous here, how soon will we get to phase 2? How soon will we get to phase 3? Particularly at my Sherwood Farm retreat, wondering how soon I can have gatherings of maybe up to 100, maybe up to 50. We do them safely here outside during the day. There's no alcohol involved, so I'm hoping that we can do that sooner than later.
Yes.
So I can take that if Minister Lecce. Okay. Thanks for the question. One of the things, so the way the framework is currently set up is in 21-day intervals. So after, Friday, countdown 21 days to step 2, and then 21 days from there to step 3 is when that is enacted. Now, one thing that we've seen right now is we've seen incredible, I would say, numbers to support the fact that, we're doing much better than expected, whether it's from an ICU perspective, whether it's from a cases perspective. The numbers for today haven't been released yet, but, for the last 2 days, we've been under 500 cases a day, which is actually, something that if you look at some of the projections that were given to us before, we've been able to beat those because of the collective sacrifices of so many Ontarians. So we'll continue to monitor the not only the vaccination rate. So the next step of step 2 has to be 70% vaccinated plus 2 weeks. As Stephen mentioned, we've hit the 2 week. We've hit the 70%. So we're in a very good spot from a vaccination perspective there as well. With respect to stage 3 and allowing larger gatherings, the Ministry of Health is, very shortly going to release those specific numbers and details for step 3. I know right now it says it's going to be larger gatherings allowed without specific details. We're working because we recognize how important it is from a planning perspective to have that detailed information for business owners so they can plan events, so they can start to prepare. We do have a commitment from both the Ministry of Health and Dr. Williams to look at that immediately and come up with a determination. So as soon as that determination is made, we will make sure that those numbers and those the gathering limits for step 3 are provided to you immediately. But the one thing, if I could leave you with some hope, is that we're going to have a significant supply finally that is coming into Ontario to even help inoculate over 50%, or sorry, help inoculate through the second doses that we really need here in the province of Ontario to really fully inoculate over some of the variants of concerns that have arrived into Ontario. So there's a lot of work to be done, but we do see a lot of hope right along the corner here with more supply finally coming into the province, and also with those vaccination rates and second doses being administered at record levels.
Thank you. That sounds very hopeful.
We'll keep you updated. As soon as we got the numbers, we'll make sure through Stephen, you can have those.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So having said that, are you saying that if the numbers are going to go quicker and vaccinations go quicker, that we may reduce that 21 days down? Is that something that could happen?
That's ultimately up to our public health team. I think our job as collective government is to really, put forward, measures that will help us get there. Distribution through, I believe, vaccines, how they've been administered. Yesterday we had 175,000 vaccines administered. So, we're vaccinating at an incredible pace. ICUs are coming down. So there is a part of, reopening stage 1 where we need to, assess if the numbers, have increased, or, there's, more spread, or more ICUs have been, come into place. So there is an element of time there that is needed, but ultimately that determination will come from our public health officials.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Feel free to ask a question. You're not going to get these two guys together anytime. They're here today with us, so make sure they're not easy questions. They're big guys. They can answer the tough questions. I know these guys.
So
go ahead, Molly. Molly,
hi.
you got your hand up. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I started a new business in November 2020. And I'm just sort of waiting for the zoning to come through on the property right at King and Keel. So I guess have a few questions regarding business support for businesses that were created after March 2020, basically as a result of not having the job that I had before because of the pandemic. So I guess that was my way of pivoting. And if there's anything sort of out there, if I can take advantage of any of those programs, as well, I guess just like how to, I guess, reduce the government costs associated with starting a business. Like, how do I get something like sign permits covered, or zoning applications or things like that? Like, is there anything out there that can assist in that other than the community improvement plan? Because that can't be accessed until after the zoning is done. So after you've spent, I don't know, 25, 50K or whatever. Yeah, so I guess just any support in those areas.
With respect to businesses, so you were saying March 2020 or no?
November 2020, I started online and doing like curbside pickup and whatnot.
Okay. So I believe new businesses that started, is it a retail-based business?
Yeah.
Okay. I unfortunately, the small business support grant has now closed in terms of the access to it, where we had about 100 and I would say about 10,000 businesses that applied. Were you able to apply to that at all, or?
No, everything that I looked at said that I had to have had a business before March 2020.
So we did make an exception in that one program to allow for businesses that were opened, new businesses that were opened after March 2020 to apply.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that program has now been closed, but what we can, so in the future, as we kind of continue to look at new supports for businesses, if you have any property tax costs, or if you have any costs related to energy or hydro, you can expense those costs to the government still, even if you're a new business.
Okay.
We try to be very flexible in for new businesses. Our grant program allowed all new businesses to apply. The other program I will point you towards, because you're an online business, is the Digital Main Street program.
Yeah, I used that.
Were you able to get that, or?
Yeah, I used that. It was great.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and we're renewing it again. So we put another $10 million investment into that as of last month. So there might be more programming through the Digital Main Street program that would be available for you to access in about, actually probably right now, the website is probably activated again, applications, hopefully starting again very, very soon on that. So you'd be able to potentially access, some more supports through that Digital Main Street program as well for now.
Okay.
And in terms of the municipal side, unfortunately, I don't have the information from the municipality in terms of support programs they might provide with some of those fees, but maybe I can pass that over to any municipal representative that might be on, or to Angelo or Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Molly, that's great. It's, as far as the municipality goes, I think you've probably been down that route in terms of trying to see what's available. We have our economic development Jamie on the line with us today as well. And I think you probably know Jamie very well right now, Molly, don't you?
Somewhat.
Okay, because I know Jamie can help us. He can help. He's been doing a great job with our small businesses, and so if there's anything you need for that from the municipality end of it, I think he'd be a great resource.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because the property is being rezoned, until the whole official plan and everything comes into place, those supports aren't available to me. So everything's been out of pocket from my savings. So I was just sort of dipping in here to see if there was any other supports that were available, just to sort of help me get by for the retail launch. But I think that I got my answers. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. I have Anna Roberts, who has her hand up.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, ministers. My question is, everybody knows that the real estate market is very, very hot. And the dream of ownership, especially for our first-time home buyers, has become almost obsolete. What programs are we prepared to implement as a government to assist with the dream of home ownership?
It's a really important question. I appreciate it. Good morning, Anna. I think for many young people in the province of Ontario, for perhaps many of your family or children, it has become quite the stretch to be able to own a home in the GTA. So there is a housing action plan which the government has launched to help do two things. One is ensure affordable housing as part of the mix of development that takes place within our respective municipalities. And the second is to incent the building of more supply, because ultimately we've got immigration and net growth of population in our province. And yet, as you can appreciate, we still don't have enough homes to actually house these individuals. And so we're always going to be in a deficit, which will affect the demand and of course the price. And so we're taking action to support where it is environmentally sound, but to build homes, both through vertical growth communities. It wouldn't be the case in King, but certainly in the south part of Vaughan, you'll see more intensification. And really the aim is to get as many homes at an affordable rate as possible. We've created incentives and financial support in recent budgets for certain segments of the population, like seniors, on home renovation, just trying to help even in incremental ways with respect to housing costs for everyone, including for fixed income seniors and pensioners who, are trying to make their homes accessible to maybe live there longer than to have to move into a congregate care setting like a senior's home or assisted living home. But with respect to young people and helping to make homes affordable, when we got in here 3 years ago, we had some of the most expensive housing in the nation. It rose sharply over the 15 years prior when the former government, and I know that was a key critical issue for young people. So the fact that we've got a strategy that is incentivizing the private sector to step up, build, and intensify where it is permitted. Another thing we're doing is we're saying to the development sector that they've got to put some skin in the game. When we're building GO stations, for example, it is our position that a developer who's going to build a GO station, that going to build a community, should be paying for the capital, should be paying for the actual cost of the facility for that GO station to create development in communities that actually have the infrastructure built in them more proactively, versus this reactive approach where you build 10,000 homes and then have to figure out the infrastructure and transit later. It's just nonsensical. So what we're saying is, no. You want to build a community, no problem. It's permitted by the bylaw and official plans and the regional governments and all that, fair game. But you've got to build that asset that the community will benefit from. The province will operate it, but the developer will pay for it. And of course, they have an incentive themselves because they're being able to sell a product close to things like a subway or a GO station. So that approach is going to also help, because what we're seeing is around some of these GO stations, more intensification to create more pedestrian-friendly communities. Obviously, in the township and in this part of Vaughan and King and really York, that is not always the case, particularly as you get sort of north of the King-Vaughan line. And so our aim is just to make sure that municipalities, townships, et cetera, are building in an affordable housing component to their growth plan, because we just want to make sure that to the extent humanly possible, a young person could buy a home in the community they were raised. And for too long, that dream has been lost. I'm not sure, Prabmeet, if you have anything you want to build on that, but I know this is a big issue in both of our communities.
Very good question. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Anna. Linda, you have your hand up?
Yes. I'm wondering, as a volunteer at the Trizan Center for the vaccine clinic, where are we at the numbers as far as residents being vaccinated? Mr. Lecce?
First of all, thank you. And I should thank you and Anna, Angelo. I've seen a whole bunch of the community volunteering or getting vaccinated. And so it's amazing to see the King Fire and so many volunteers together to get this community vaccinated. It's impressive. I'm proud if you saw what they did up at the Trizan Center, I think you'd be incredibly impressed. All community oriented, all volunteers, supported by some local doctors. But so we have, over the last 7 days, we've reached 9 million, our 9 million milestone. Yesterday, we hit another milestone in the context of 10 million vaccine doses have been administered, with over 1 million Ontarians fully vaccinated. We have well on our way to north of 35% of children 12 and up have been vaccinated already. So we've really made progress, reaching our targets, exceeding our targets, and on track to get to the 2-dose summer. And so what you will note is that as of Monday, individuals that are 70 years old or over, as of 21, as of this year, will be able to receive their second doses. And so we've accelerated that really because we want to make sure that our age prioritization continues to be for seniors, and starting at 80 up, then 70 up, we'll get down to 60 soon enough. We're well on track to accelerating that. And of course, as we know, all of the long-term care homes within the region of York back in December, January were double vaccinated for their staff and for their residents, including my own grandmother. So there's a lot of progress being made here. And with respect to the King specific numbers, I was told anecdotally that we are really leading the way in getting vaccines up, particularly for the first dose. And so you'll see over the next month or so, we're going to start to pivot to really the second dose strategy. We're still talking about first doses at about 72, 74% of the first doses are complete, but we're now reaching almost 80%. We're now one of the highest jurisdictions in the world that has one dose. So we want to focus on that second dose. That's going to be critical in our defense against this Delta variant or this variant that originated in India. And we're going to need the second dose to protect us and to help prevent a fourth wave. We've also, continued to call on the federal government and just, working with them collaboratively to make sure there's no loopholes at the border. We just think that's a vulnerability for us going forward with these variants. We just want to make sure we have the most, let's say, cautious approach to our reopening, so we don't put in peril the sacrifices you've all made and I think many families have made in the country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please put your hand up, or I can't see all the screen. So if you have a question, just put your hand up. I see Marcia. Marcia, you have your hand up, and then we'll take Carla after that.
Hi, Angelo. I have a question for the ministers. I know there's been a lot of spending going on, necessary spending. I'm just wondering how the government is expecting to deal with all of the debt it has accumulated.
Yeah. I'll finish. I'll maybe follow you, but I've got a response. But maybe I'll let you lead on that.
Yeah, sure. During this time, I think one of the we were in an unprecedented time, given what some of the restrictions that were implemented. It did have a serious impact on many Ontarians, Canadians, and small business owners. So I think we did have a duty to make sure we supported those businesses and we make sure we helped them get through this pandemic. That being said, in the first year of this government, we had a very strong focus on fiscal prudence, making sure that we looked at the government's focus from an efficiency perspective. We've, to this date, built a very transformative approach to how we are tackling many issues within the government. One of the things that, we truly believe in from, business owners, job creators, is a very competitive environment here in Ontario. And I really think that, when you look at what we were able to accomplish in our first year as government, we were able to drive over 300,000 new jobs because we put in various measures, whether that be small business tax cuts, whether that be accelerated capital cost allowances, decreases in WSIB premiums, a focus on regulatory reform, reducing costs for businesses by over $440 million. In return, what we saw was significant output through more spending by individuals, going out, buying more things, businesses creating more revenue because there was more opportunity here in Ontario. We're trying to engage our businesses globally to export more, so they can build more jobs here in Ontario. So I truly think one of the ways out of this is to be creative. As the Premier has mentioned many times, we have to be competitive. Taxing our way out of this is not going to be something that we can, our businesses can afford. And so we're going to continue to keep that as a main focus of creating a very business-friendly environment that creates jobs, that creates high-paying jobs. In return, what I believe we're going to see over the next couple of months is a very strong economic recovery. Many economists are predicting the same thing. Many of the reports that I had a chance to read is, there's been significant savings from the household market. I believe and I believe they're ready to spend, as soon as they're able to get out, go shopping, and go to restaurants. You're going to see a significant uptick in increase in demand there. And so I think a lot of that is going to be driven by, some of the deficits that have been created, some of the debt that has been piled on. Although we have very low interest rates right now, I think one of the ways to get through it is to have very competitive economic policies that drive more economic growth here in the province, build better jobs, higher paying jobs, and use that as a source to really drive down those deficits, drive down those debts that we've accumulated, and that's something that we really truly try to focus on, because that's going to be the best way out of here, and supporting our entrepreneurs, supporting our small businesses, getting them back on their feet by driving more growth here in Ontario is a way to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll build on and just will say, colleagues, we're not going to tax or spend our way out of to prosperity. I mean, we need a growth plan that's going to see private sector growth leading the way. And as a proof point of what Prab just said, I mean, the deficit in this province was reduced. The financial accountability officer this morning reaffirmed that the economy is growing so faster than what we expected, that just shaved off almost $6.5 billion of the projected deficit because of GDP growth in the province, because we're actually starting to see a real recovery. And we haven't even respectfully gotten started. I mean, and by me, I mean industry, commerce, small business. We're just starting that recovery process. I mean, phase one hasn't commenced yet. We're really going to start to see growth. So I think you raise a fair point. Yes, I think in a crisis, we'll do what we need to support those small businesses and individuals. I mean, in my own ministry, we literally personally expended almost $2 billion in direct, $1.8 billion in direct financial supports through a program called Support for Learners. That was those cash payments for all children in the province up to grade 12, essentially, age zero up to grade 12, and then additional funding for children with special education needs. So we're going to continue to provide supports to individuals, to businesses, but our focus, of course, is returning to balance and using growth in the economy to help increase revenue and pay down that deficit, because I understand the imperative of living within our means. It's why we got into government in the first place, given the deficits and debt that had doubled under the former government. And we cannot lose our sight on this from a fiscal sustainability perspective. We do not want our children and grandchildren to be paying the price for today's spending. So we are focused on that, and we're probably uniquely positioned as a party, as a government, to make sure we reach our targets and keep the deficit down so that we can get the balance.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I got a whole bunch of hands up now. Boy, people are getting excited. They want to ask these guys questions. That's great. Marsha, I hope you got that one answered for you, and I appreciate the ministers on that one. I have Carla, and then I had Stephen, and then Lisa, and Kyle. So let's move on to Carla then. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Thanks, Angelo, and thanks to the ministers for sharing those great insights. My question is coming from a very small, select group of high schoolers, and they're looking at the fall and the plan in regards to reopening schools and how that is going to roll out. And their question is, and the plan as they understand it is to have 2 classes a day, one double period, like one course in the morning, double period, and in the afternoon, a double period. So 150 minutes of one subject. And then I guess everyone's at school, and then there's a lunch period where they all gather. So they're thinking, they wanted to understand what was the thinking behind that. I didn't have the answer. So I figured, okay, let me bring it forward to you today and see if I can help them understand that fall plan for school reopening.
Sure. Absolutely. So first off, the heart of our plan is making sure that everyone 12 and up is vaccinated, double dose by mid-August ahead of September. Our province has made that commitment, and we've got the vaccines set aside and the infrastructure to deliver it, not just for the students, but for every single member of our education staff, just to make sure that everyone involved in our school system, from the bus driver to the secretary, EAs, educators, and principals, everyone gets the second dose by mid-August. So we're well on track for that. In fact, we're ahead of schedule, particularly on the student side, the youth side. That's an integral part of that we didn't have last year, to be quite frank. We didn't have vaccines for youth or, to be fair, adults last September. So this is a game changer in itself that's going to improve the safety of our school system and the community. We know that one of the things that our program is really built on is reducing indirect and direct contact, which is why some school boards have opted for these semester programs where you stay within your cohort as much as humanly possible to limit interaction. As we look to September, this July, Ontario's new Chief Medical Officer, called Dr. Moore, who's replacing Dr. Williams, will provide final guidance to school boards and the province on where we're at, essentially how we're able to lift some of the restrictions that we have contemplated today based on increasing rates of vaccine and decreasing case rates in the community. So the numbers continue to come down, vaccine rates go up. The medical officer of health, chief medical officer of health will say to us in July, look, based on these good metrics, good benchmarks, we're going to be able to allow school boards more flexibility so that they may be able to change those semestering programs, or potentially even in high schools not having masks, for example. Like, there are some scenarios, maybe not immediately in September, but where we're going to be able to lift those restrictions based on public health indicators. So the plan is to be cautious today, because as I think we've learned, it's best to start cautious, but with the intention of following the advice in July and loosening restrictions according to the science and the best practices of the doctors. Because obviously, what the commitment we have made is we want students to have access to, this year, unlike last year, to gym, to clubs, to camps, as well as to sports, all of which for the clubs and sports and extracurriculars are really important within our school system. And last year, that just wasn't really, there wasn't a ton of there wasn't a ton of allowance for that, because that meant more children's interacting with other kids outside of their cohorts. And that the whole point was aggressively cohorting the children that worked very well in this province. The Chief Medical Officer of Health has been absolutely consistent. So is Dr. Kurji, by the way, in York Region, that our school system has been safe, but we want to make sure it's more stable in September. So that's why we're looking for that final analysis in July. That'll be the pivot point where we, either step up or step down some of those measures based on where we're at. I think we're on track, and God willing, we'll be able to step down some of them and give students a bit more flexibility. But we feel pretty confident that we've maintained the full complement of actions this year, next year, even though the world is going to change with a double dose province by the end of the summer. The asymptomatic testing program, the public health nurses being doubled, the fact that we have PPE provided for all staff, enhanced cleaning of our schools, the screening before children and staff enter. All of these actions, as the head of the Ontario Science Table and a variety of pediatric experts that kids have said, is that Ontario's plan has been effective. Of course, we're the casualty of cases spiking in the community. So we just got to keep these rates down so we can keep schools consistent, stable, open, and allow children to be children, which I think this year was a tough one. Well, I think the last couple of years have been tough on children with the pandemic around the world. And I also just want to say learning loss is something significant this past year. And we've expanded summer learning, the largest ever in Ontario history. And if parents or grandparents are interested in enrolling a child in a summer learning program to sort of just to help them build up that knowledge that they may not have grasped or learned or retained this year, both for the public and Catholic English and French boards in York, but across Ontario have way more resources, a dramatic increase of funding to help them. And we've expanded summer tutoring of teachers who lead tutoring in subjects like math. And just yesterday, if I may plug, we announced a modernized overhaul of our math curriculum in the province, finally aligning it with the labor market needs, the job and life skills that parents, small businesses, entrepreneurs have been calling for in the province of Ontario. We've got twice the rate of youth unemployment. I thought Anna's question was really important. We've got young people who are so smart, educated, but can't get a job, can't afford a home. And what I'm trying to do is make the education curriculum actually usable in the daily life of a child. How to rent a car, how to take out a mortgage, how to pay a visa bill. These are actual requirements for graduation. A student in Ontario in September will not be able to graduate unless they produce a budget, a personal budget for themselves. In grade 10, they have to produce a budget for the first year after high school, meaning a budget for post-secondary, maybe for paying, college, university, or rent, or whatever the case is. We're trying to make, essentially, we're trying to make it less theoretical and more applicable in people's lives. And I'm also very proud that we've de-streamed this curriculum, which I think is really important to give every child in the province an equal opportunity to success. So we're doing quite a bit in that respect, which I actually think intersects with a lot of what the chambers have been calling for, which is financial literacy at the core of our curriculum, coding. Every child in this province will know and learn how to code, as well as a heavy emphasis on data management and analysis. So we're proud of what that, nothing to do, Carla, with your question, but it just, as a part of the chamber, I thought I'd talk about something that I think is important to a lot of parents, which is a curriculum that is useful to their child now and into their future. So we want to help them get access to good jobs and gain the knowledge that they're going to need in this changing climate.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer as well. Good question, Carla. Can I, Stephen McCasey, I believe, was next, and then I have a couple more. Let's not run out of time, so we have a few more minutes. Stephen McCasey, then Lisa, and then Kyle. I think that'll be all the questions we'll be able to take at this time, though. Stephen McCasey, are you there?
I am.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Angel. My first question is to Minister Singh. As you know, small business has been the back of how our province and how our nation was really built. Mom and Pa sitting at a table doing the books, doing the scheduling, doing the purchasing. One of the issues that we face as small business entrepreneurs is red tape. And obviously that's your direct portfolio. How do we get red tape streamlined? I don't think any one of us are asking to have rules broken. What we're asking for is to give us a direct program of points that we must follow, boxes to check, get them checked, submit, and then know within a certain period of time our development or our program can be launched, because time is money and money is time. We add our costs, it goes to the end user, obviously at the end, but time we don't get back. So in order to promote entrepreneurs to take risk, how can we come up with a program to eliminate some of this red tape and at least get it down to a feasible order? And then my last question would be to Minister Lecce. In a very important period of time as we come out of this period of decline in this pandemic, how can we promote education and, more importantly, apprenticeship programs to develop the skills necessary to deal with the onslaught of new business opportunities that are coming?
Well, thank you for that question. It's a great question. One of the things that we've been focused on is do legislative reform every session. We've done, 5 red tape reduction packages to help, support that streamlining of regulations. One thing that I ask, many business owners to do is, if they have a process that they have identified as being overly complex, especially dealing with, provincial regulations, or one where they think they can, the government needs to make certain changes on, write to us directly, write to my office directly on what that process is, and we will endeavor to get that changed. A lot of, red tape reduction, regulatory modernization that's happening is a direct result of stakeholders, industry groups that reach out to us and identify, they'll journey map, a certain process and say, this process takes, 3 years, for example. How do we get it to 1? How do we get it to 6 months? One of the really neat initiatives we're working on from an industrial, permitting perspective is, right now we recognize in the provincial government that if you're applying for, say some sort of a development, you have to, you might have to get an MTO permit. You might have to get an environmental permit. You might have to go to MNRF to get some sort of approval there or environmental approval. What we're going to do is we're going to streamline all of that into one program. We're going to streamline all of that into one collective channel, so that there's accountability and transparency in terms of, I sent an email to X. Why didn't I get a response? I've got my environmental permit, but I don't have my MTO permit right now. We're looking at consolidating all of that to ensure, especially on streamlining industrial development, which is going to be a key pillar to economic growth. Also working then with municipalities to streamline certain projects as well. We want to make sure that those processes are put in place to limit and reduce that time that you were speaking to, because I 100% agree with you that you can never get your time back, and it's so necessary, especially today in the climate that we're in, to get projects off the ground, and those processes limited so business owners don't spend that time, whether it's going through countless applications, waiting months and months when they're really ready to develop or ready to start, growing their businesses immediately. So, if you have any sort of businesses or processes, that have been identified in your business practice, please reach out to us directly and identify those, and we'll endeavor to work on getting those streamlined. And the second part, I'll pass over to Minister Lecce.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we already have a skill shortage in the province of Ontario, huge in the GTHA. We have to do more, and our province and the government has really stepped up to lead in the context of encouraging and incentivizing young people to see themselves in the skilled trades. The fact is, we have 1 in 5 jobs today in the skilled trades are unfilled. And that's going to be exacerbated by the baby boomers further exiting the workforce. So we know we have a competitive challenge right now. 100,000 jobs today need to be filled, let alone in the future. And I think respectfully, a lot of this has to do with the stigmatization of these jobs, this perception that they are dirty, and yet they're highly technical, highly dignified, high wage jobs, often at a higher rate than perhaps a social studies degree in university. So we're trying to change the perception. We launched an ad program targeting young people, really trying to let them know that these are cutting edge jobs within STEM education. What we've done, in fact, in the curriculum I announced yesterday, when I was just mentioning and responding to Carla's question, we put an emphasis on career paths into STEM and into the skilled trades within our new curriculum, both in grade 1 to 8 that I announced last June, and yesterday when I announced the new grade 9 math curriculum. A few things I'll note. There's a program called the Specialist High Skills Major Program. That is in grade 11 and 12, right in our schools. Our government significantly expanded that program so that young people early in their lives, even earlier we introduced the concepts, but in grade 11 and 12, children literally take interactive courses where they're able to complete courses for their diploma. So we allow them to use that apprenticeship training happening within our schools and our communities for the purpose of getting courses, accredited courses, and then entering into the field. We've stepped that up in 19 sectors, including agriculture, aviation, construction, energy, environment, food processing, forestry, horticulture, landscaping, hospitality, and tourism, information and communication technology, manufacturing, mining, and transportation. So many alignments of those sectors with some of the industries that we need to bring in people. We've also created a dual credit program, which allows students in secondary schools to take college and apprenticeship courses that count towards their Ontario secondary degree diploma, which again is a really neat way of encouraging them to take those courses right in our system of education. We've created the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, which creates co-op placement. And in the last budget, I announced 1,000 spaces. 1,000 young people will be entering a paid co-op program. So we're trying to create incentives in the private sector to bring young people in, to apply their skill, get paid, and then stay on the workforce. So that's sort of like in the German apprenticeship model, as you will know, perhaps a very advanced model where in school they enter into an agreement with an employer and then they exit education with a guaranteed job. So that's the vision we're trying to get to help connect people from education into the labor market. And there's a lot more we're doing in this respect, but it's a key priority for the government. And I really believe we're making a difference here. We're seeing an increase in enrollment, and we're seeing a greater rate of positive reception to the skill trades from young people that we've never seen before because of the work we're doing to market it to them and encourage them. Angel, I think you're just mute there, sir.
Sorry, that's something that we have to start looking at. I thank you, ministers, for that answer. We are at our time. I'm not sure if what your schedules are like. I'm not sure if you can take another question or not, but I don't want to impose. Is that okay for? If
Prabmeet leave, he can. I'm happy to stay until for maybe one more question, but I know perhaps probably booked, so I'll leave it to him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a lot of questions, and I really appreciate you. If you can stay on, that'd be great.
Yeah, my apologies. I'm unfortunately just going to jump off for an interview at 10 a.m. But I appreciate the opportunity once again, and always enjoy our conversations and look forward to coming back once again. So, Angelo, thank you to you and your team, and thank you to Stephen for having us out here, having me out here again as well, and inviting me to this. So, thanks again, and
thank you very much.
I don't know if you see Lisa there, but she's waving at you.
Hello, Lisa.
Our tally towel masks.
Yes.
With pride. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Prab. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much, Minister. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
See you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to know. We have a good crowd out today. We have lots of questions, and I really appreciate our minister to staying with us for a few extra minutes. But I don't want to impose too much on him, so I will. I'll take Lisa. You have a short question, please, and we'll get one more in if possible, and get everybody involved. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, this is a really quick question. To further my business, I usually travel to the U.S. 4 times a year. I generate revenue that I put back into our community by volunteering and giving back. Through donations and gifts and such. I've signed up just yesterday for a show in the US in Fort Lauderdale. My fear is if we get stuck and I can't go over, my entire booth fee, which is upwards of $5,000, will be lost. 2 questions, sort of 2-part question. And I don't know if you know this one, Stephen, it was probably more for Prab, but was there any concessions made for business owners traveling over to the US as far as the quarantine in the past? And is there any program that helps Canadians retrieve funds back lost by the directive of the government not allowing us to travel over to the US? And I'm talking in the past. Maybe that might help me make a decision for the future.
Yeah, it's a fair question and critical for business, commerce, tourism. Folks may want to travel, et cetera. So the Prime Minister yesterday said publicly that fully vaccinated individuals will likely be able to travel without much restriction or requirement for quarantine, and that the border would be permitted to be open for individuals that are fully vaccinated. So he's signaling, it's not official yet, because it just, I'm just, while you're asking, I'm just pulling up this article I read last night, where he said that the eventual easing of travel restrictions and quarantine rules will apply to those who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. So my instinct is that we could travel with 1 dose, but still requiring a 14-day quarantine or some type of quarantine, 7, 10, 14 days. And whereas if you're double dosed, there'll be a requirement for a test before you enter the country, and then you're free to go type thing. So it's not defined just yet, and it is a federal jurisdiction, but we are working with the feds on this because it applies to all of us. And we've got the largest land border, well, at least from when it comes to people moving across the border, and we also have the largest international airport in the country. So we're looking for the same clarity you asked, Lisa, from the feds, because we've got a massive amount of our small businesses and small and large that need to go into the US to do their business. I mean, they need to go to shows, they need to be doing trade missions. And so it's an outstanding question, and I think we're going to get the answer shortly from the federal government, who's been musing about the need to lift those restrictions that have been in place in September of 2020. Now, those restrictions are technically, they end on June 21st. So the reason why we're talking about this in the news is because people, the media, know that the 21st of June is when the federal border restrictions technically end. So the question is, what's the next phase of those restrictions that now, unlike in 2020, we have vaccines? So that when Prime Minister Trudeau said something to the effect of, double-dosed individuals should be able to move freely, I think he's pre-positioning. He's sort of, subtly indicating where the government's policy is going to be, but it's still to be defined. And I agree with you. We need to get these answers immediately because a lot of folks need to get on with the business.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
I just one more question, if you could. I know Kyle's been holding out for a while. I'll just take the one question. Sorry, Robin. I know you got your hand up again, but I'm going to take this last question with Kyle, if you don't mind, and that way I don't indulge the minister too much. Okay, Kyle, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you spending the extra time with us. My question as well, I'd like to bring up with you and as my minister, and if you can share it with Minister Sarkaria, we are in a business that's heavily regulated by the province of Ontario. I provide lawn care services, tree care services for the health of lawns and trees, and pest control, outdoor pest control for clients. We are working so hard to keep people safe, working and employed. We've been deemed an essential service, which I'm very, very grateful for. It's allowed us to keep everyone employed. And we could employ more and more people, especially young people, if only actually the government wasn't subsidizing people to stay at home. We are in such a hard position, and I know, Angela, you brought that up in an article I read yesterday about finding people that want to work or can work without being incentivized to work at home. But my main thing is trust in Health Canada is at an all-time high, it seems, with vaccine approvals, et cetera. Yet, and people are at home caring about their green spaces more and more. But what's happening is the general public is flagrantly disobeying laws and are able to import unregulated control products that are regulated by Health Canada and approved by Health Canada, yet the McGuinty government banned the use of those on home lawns. And so I'm in a business that is now competing in something that used to be held hush-hush and nobody would talk about, but it is outright flagrantly. If you go for a walk, you can smell the chemicals being used. They are coming through mail order, through the border, no problem, from other provinces and US states. People are talking about it on Facebook groups and bragging about all the products. The only people obeying the laws are those regulated by the Ontario government. I hold 3 licenses with the Ontario government that don't allow me to apply a damn thing. Nothing as effective as my new competitors, the general public, are outright applying no signage, no public awareness, no nothing, and there's zero enforcement. And I'm still technically a licensed Ontario pesticide applicator, but I'm using iron, natural, organic, everything else that's out there. Well, chemicals are being used nonstop on home lawns. It's eroding my business and my ability to provide a viable service. And we obey the rules and operate legally. And this red tape is destroying us. I don't know what the government can do about it. I know there's lots of important things out there, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think one thing I'll need to dig into and maybe speak with our federal member on is just on the shipping of product that is domestically not legally sold in Ontario, that there's a workaround that undermines your bottom line, but also violates the spirit of the law. Which the government has decided that those pesticides, based on whatever chemicals and whatever the environmental considerations were made, they're still getting access to the product. It's not regulated. It's not safe. We don't actually know where it's coming from, and it's being used. So I can appreciate how that's creating a competitive disadvantage for you not only for your business, but I think for everyone in the same space. So I'm going to have to follow up with I will follow up with the federal office just to understand what can be done in the context of curtailing the shipment of product that effectively is illegal for sale in Ontario. I think that's not an unreasonable request. In the context of being essential, yes, I thought that was an important way by which we could at least help some sectors of the economy stay afloat. And in your space, you employ a lot of young people generally, not always, but and they've taken a big hit here in this economy too. We focus on a lot of older age brackets, but young folks, precarious employment, they're in a tough place. We've seen the youth unemployment rate rise over the pandemic. So the fact that you've been able to retain them as part of your workforce, I think, is a good story to tell, and more importantly, it underscores why you are essential. Because the maintenance of our homes and our property, I think, is not something that is you can just put on hold for 8 months. Talk to a guy like myself that my water heater broke this morning. So let's say I had a very awakening hour at 6 a.m. this morning. Yeah. So, but the point is, these things are essential, and but I will follow up with the feds to understand what they're doing specifically to counter illegal product entering the province and potentially putting at risk the families, the consumers using it, because there's no regulatory regime in place to protect them. I'll follow up with the MP on that.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Minister. Okay, I thank everyone for joining and participating today. It was a great event. We do have an event every second week on Thursday mornings. If you want to hear interesting information and meet some new ministers and meet our networking group. Again, thank you, Minister Lecce and our Minister of Small Business. If you have any questions, please send them on to Minister of Small Business, Prabmeet. He will definitely get back to you. They're very good. He's very good at doing that. So don't think your questions have gone unanswered. Just send them an email, and I'm sure he'll get back to you with your questions. And thank you very much again for participating. Thank you, Minister Lecce, for being with us again today. It was great to see you. We'll see you in person. The next time we'll see you in person for sure. Thank you for our council members who have joined, and everyone have a good day, a safe day, and